All right, good evening. Thank you. I'm Jeremy Rosen. I'm the director of the Tanner Humanities Center. Welcome to our event tonight with David Roh interviewing Min Jin Lee. It's a pleasure to have you here. I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to acknowledge first that the land that we gather on today, which is named for the Ute tribe, is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. The University of Utah recognizes and respects the enduring relationship that exists between many indigenous peoples and their traditional homelands. We respect the sovereign relationship between tribes, states, and the federal government, and we affirm the university's commitment to a partnership with Native nations and urban Indian communities through research, education, and outreach activities. Thank you. I do want to let you know that we have a few seats still open down here in the front, over here. So if there are people in the back, or there are people out on the wait list, we still do have some seats. Okay, we're not big on long introductions here because we know who you want to hear from. So it's my pleasure to introduce the Dean of the College of the Humanities, Dr. Hollis Robbins.
Thank you. Good evening, and I'm going to say one more time, there are seats in front because I saw the wait list out there, which first of all is fantastic to have potentially a standing room only crowd today. So if people want to come, I see 4 right up front. Just bring them around. So thank you. I'm Hollis Robbins, Dean of the College of Humanities, and I'm delighted to introduce 2 wonderful thinkers in conversation with each other. First, David Roh, professor, Department of English at the University of Utah and incoming chair of the department, is author of 3 books, most recently Minor Trans-Pacific, Triangulating American, Japanese, and Korean Fictions, lauded by the Association for Asian American Studies, Illegal Literature, and Techno-Orientalism, and he's currently working on Techno-Orientalism 2.0. And Min Jin Lee, the author of the novels Free Food for Millennials and for Millionaires. And of course, I like that. I think I'm going to write that book. And of course, Pachinko, which everyone I know has read and loved. Lee is the recipient of many awards, including the 2022 Manhai Grand Prize for Literature from South Korea, the 2022 Buncheon Diaspora Literary Award, and fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation, the Radcliffe Institute at Harvard, and the New York Foundation for the Arts. She's an inductee of the New York Foundation for the Arts Hall of Fame and the New York State Writers Hall of Fame. I am so glad that writers have so many halls of fame. It is, there should be more. Lee is writer in residence at Amherst College and serves as a trustee of PEN America and as a director of the Authors Guild. She has at work on her 3rd novel, American Hagwon, and a nonfiction work, Name Recognition. Please join me in welcoming David Roh and Min Jin Lee.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Hello, Utah.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. Min, thanks so much for coming out here.
I'm here to talk to David.
Yeah, we've been corresponding over the years, right? But I think it's only the 2nd time we've seen each other in person. I think I accosted you in Boston 7 years ago.
But we didn't get to hang out.
No, you're much too busy back then.
No, I'm really sorry, but it wasn't really me.
No. This is all by design. I somehow orchestrated all this just so we can have this time.
No, I'm so happy. I wanted to hang out with David because he's so cute.
And making me blush.
Now I just completely embarrassed him. He's like the son I've always wanted.
Make me blush. Yeah. So I have a confession to make. I was running my book about Korean American fictions and Zainichi Korean fictions way back in 2016, and I didn't know how to end it. I was starting to get kind of worried about it. And then I realized that you've been writing Pachinko, that's coming out the next year in 2017. And it was an odd coincidence because I read your first book, Free Food from Millionaires, back in 2007 in Tokyo when I was living out there researching my book. And I think you're out there around the same time researching pachinko.
But you didn't call me.
I know. Again, I didn't know where you were. But we have these kind of weird concordances in our professional lives. So it's,
We have finally decided to meet in Utah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Utah is where dreams happen and dreams come true.
I really like it here. I've been here for 3.5 hours. I have received so much love, I feel like I'm kind of floating.
But the thing I'm saying is I owe it to you for giving me the off-ramp to finishing my book.
Oh,
So
well,
thank
I
you.
can't take credit for that because I think finishing a book is incredibly difficult. But I do think that us hovering around a certain subject is us responding to something that's going on in the world.
Yeah, and there's no way I could have predicted that, but it seemed like
But
there's
you and
something
I are the
in
only
ether.
ones, though.
I think at the time. Yeah. Well, I know my colleague Cindy Texter over there. She was writing on the same subject as well.
So it's just the three of us.
Just the three of us, yeah. But let me just start off by getting this out of the way, because this is a question that plagues me, and I'm sure you, whenever you give talks. And it's about Hallyu, the Korean wave.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, it's been really kind of weird for me to see Korea develop from like cultural obscurity to the alley uprisings to the cultural juggernaut it is today. And I wanted to get your perspective on it. Like what, if you think your work is in conversation with that movement at all, because you are interested in the Korean diaspora, and that's kind of a big part of it. And so I was wondering how you conceive how your work, if at all, is engaged with that conversation.
Oh, it's entirely me. No, I'm just kidding. I think that Hallyu is really interesting, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's this whole idea of Korean wave and Korean culture going out in the world in a global way. I think that I've always been somebody, even since college, I've believed that Korean culture is really interesting. It was interesting to me, it was interesting, and if it wasn't interesting to other people, I thought they were wrong. I'm absolutely serious about this, and I think that because I have a learning issue, I can't read the room very well. So very often, when I thought that I was right, I would just kind of barrel through, which is a very helpful skill to be, as a novelist. Because most people think you're stupid. Because you don't make any money, you have no status, and you're working on this thing. And both of my books, it's interesting because now they're really normal. But when I was writing them, people thought that I was dumb. And I would get it all the time. So one of the great things about all this sort of social bullying that I've gotten is that I have a really tough skin when it comes to people kind of saying, you're an idiot for having worked on that. But going back to Hallyu, I think it's a natural progression of all the effort that's been going on with the Korean government and the Korean people. So to me, it seems really natural. And I've met so many Koreans around the world and Koreans in America who have said, I was so ashamed of being Korean, I was so ashamed of my culture, all these things. And I have news for you. If you raise your kids in a predominantly white neighborhood, you can expect that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's called racism.
Yeah.
It's cultural racism, it's cultural exclusion. So here again, I'm gonna get in trouble. But I grew up in Queens, so I'm normal in Queens. And I didn't see myself as a second-class citizen.
Yeah.
So that's the upside of being working class.
And the messaging was always that Korea was kind of this third-tier country, cultural force, and to see it just emerge like a sleeping giant in the past 10, 15 years has been kind of whiplash for me, but it sounds like you were sitting there saying, what took you so long?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I keep thinking there's more coming. And so, yeah, so I guess it's different between, Orange County and Los Angeles downtown, right? It's really different.
Yeah, very different.
And also California Koreans, they're so much cooler. No, it's not even a question. Like, I don't know about the Utah Koreans because I haven't met that many yet, but we could talk later. But the newer Koreans in the Northeast, they have a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
Like if you meet a Korean from Greenwich, Connecticut, who came when they were like 12, they're going to have certain issues because other people around them like treated them like shit.
On that note, so you're distinguishing between all the regional Koreanisms and how it's not a monolith, right? So
Yeah, I fight this every day.
so your first book was set in New York City, your second in Japan, and your third book is being set, I'm imagining, in the US, Korea,
Australia.
Australia, some other countries as well, right? So it seems like you are interested in grappling with the Korean diaspora on a pretty large scale. And so I want to ask you, why is it important for you to capture the diaspora on scale through time and space and geography and movement that's a bit larger than I'm used to seeing?
I think I do it because I think that's what I'm seeing in my field work. When I meet a Korean person in, let's say, Minnesota, very often they're not from Minnesota. They're from Brazil. So I would be lying as a social realist novelist to not recognize that there are these enormous groups in different parts of the world who are coming and they're having different experiences. So I gotta tell you, like, I get in trouble a lot with other Koreans, and I try to say it in the nicest possible way. So please don't get mad at me, because I'm so sensitive. And I might cry on stage. I've done it a lot. I try to tell Koreans, please don't make generalizations about us. It hurts us. It hurts our kids. It really hurts our kids. So very often we purport to be experts and say, oh, Koreans do this and Koreans do that. I'm like, I've met a lot of Koreans now. Like, I've actually talked very intimately to tens of thousands. So many Koreans. And I will say, they're like, it's like me making a generalization about Catholics. It's a silly thing.
And it seems that it's important for you to capture beyond the binary of the US and Korea.
Yes.
To look at the peculiar specific histories of Koreans in Australia or the UK, right? And is that something that you're interested in, sort of in propelling forward a more complicated vision, a more complex reality of Korea?
Yeah, so I'm writing this book right now, and it's killing me. Because the more interviews that I do, the more I realize most Koreans, they don't go, oh, here I am in Seoul, and I'm going to be in Orange County. It's often not that simple. Very often they go somewhere else first. There's usually like 2 or 3 different migrations. And as a matter of fact, most immigrants in this country, there's usually several different points of migration. So when I think about diaspora, I keep thinking, well, how do I do this accurately? But in terms of telling a story, it adds complexity for the storyteller. And then I have to know more. So it's kind of a drag.
That sounds like a lot of research.
It's a lot of research. And also people will write to me and say, that wasn't my experience. And they'll go on, and I'll go, okay. I get a lot of letters.
I'm sure none from these kind folks.
No, they're actually really nice letters. I get so much great letters, but I can't respond to all of them. And when I read them, I feel even a greater sense of responsibility because it means so much to them.
Can I talk about your first book a bit?
Sure.
Pivot a little bit? We'll move on quickly.
There are Goldman Sachs people here.
I talked to some bankers earlier, and they gave us permission.
Okay.
So I graduated from college at a time when I saw a lot of my friends, well, particularly my Asian American friends, twisting themselves in knots trying to get a land of summer internship with Goldman Sachs. And from the outside, it's not something I was interested in, but it looked very mysterious to me. I didn't really quite know what was happening over there. I kind of understood, the ludicrous salaries and the signing bonuses and all of that. But what I was starting to see was that there used to be like a couple different pathways that would make your parents happy: lawyer, doctor, engineer, and then banker was sort of the fourth leg on the table that would signal immigrant success, right? Second generation.
But getting a PhD is considered pretty sexy in Korea.
Tell that to my parents.
No, it is. I mean, it's funny because I have so many friends in academics, and they're always like, "Oh, I'm so ashamed. I've been in school forever." I'm like, "Go to Korea. You're gonna feel hot."
So I'm writing notes. Go to Korea.
I will feel hot.
I will be big in Korea. But Free Food for Millionaires kind of lampoons the banking industry, investment banking industry, in a pretty incisive way.
It lampoons greed and capitalism.
Yes, and it turns out to be a pretty vacuous, empty space for the protagonist, Casey.
Yeah.
It shows your book is showing how that kind of calling is not particularly fulfilling. I know you were a lawyer in a previous life.
corporate lawyer.
Corporate lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm curious why you picked banking. Why not law? Because I'm sure you could have talked about law or medicine or engineering. What was banking what was something in banking that you saw that was particularly germane to your experience or Korean American experience or Asian American experience writ large?
Such a good question. I really want to talk about capitalism. And this was in 2000. So I started writing this book, 1996, right? And I really wanted to understand capitalism because it didn't make any sense to me. And I didn't understand intense greed. So I'm not against people making money. I think it's great. And as a matter of fact, because I'm from Korea and because my father's from the north and my mother's from the south, I'm fully aware of what communism looks like in practice. In practice, very often communism becomes totalitarianism. So I'm not going to say that I'm this big socialist because I'm not either. However, I was so confused by what was going on. And it's interesting because my third book right now that I'm working on, it's two financial crises that I'm bracketing. One is the IMF crisis, which is the most important event for 21st century Koreans. And Americans have no idea. No idea. Talk to any Korean person and you say 1997, they're like, oh yes. That was the year that everything went wrong. Americans are like, 1997, it's not a big deal at all. And then the other financial crisis in the US is 2007 and 2008. So my book will cover those two periods. So I think about economics and money and business all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's why I had to use an investment bank.
So
a field I knew very little about.
Well,
and then I learned it.
It was incisive, and it's fitting that you mentioned crises. I would like to ask you to read a passage from your first book here. And this is to set the scene a bit. This is a bit earlier, or middle of the novel when Casey, our protagonist, is dating Unu, one of her boyfriends, Korean-American boyfriend. He's got a bit of a gambling problem. And she's taking his interest in casinos, or trying to take his interest in casinos in stride. And this is they're leaving the casino.
So Unu is in investment banking, just for you guys to know. And Casey is in this world, and they're both basically young finance Asian Americans, a group that I really like, by the way. For the remainder of the ride, they talked of where to go for dinner to celebrate his winnings. Casey tried to be enthusiastic about the money, but found it difficult. She had grown up without money, and it hadn't occurred to her how she could have it exactly. But gambling felt like a dishonest way to acquire it. She could argue to herself that it wasn't stealing, and clearly it was legal, but the whole thing made her feel uncomfortable. Perhaps it was seeing the faces of the elderly men in gabardine slacks, the fabric shiny in the seat and knees, pulling down the levers of the slot machines, their bold eyes full of cherries. Unu had said to her earlier when he was explaining blackjack, "You can beat the house, and you should beat the house." That made it sound as if you were taking money from a faceless company. But walking through that smoking floor had made Casey see that the house was filled with men and women who were bored, wistful, and full of pipe dreams. It was their foolish money that had built and furnished that edifice.
Thank you so much. So, your book.
Love Utah. All for a paragraph, yeah.
We'll have another chance at this. So it's probably not a far stretch or a stretch for me to say that the book is trying to draw a comparison between banking and the casino, mm-hmm. right? And your book came out in 2007. The banking crisis hit us in 2008. One of the major critiques about investment banks at the time was that they're gambling with house money, our 401ks, our pensions. And I want to ask you, what did you see in your crystal ball that the rest of us have missed?
Well, It wasn't like I saw a crystal ball. What I did see is that I saw all these young, super smart people, like what you're talking about, going into this area, and also their parents saying, go, go, go. You'll have security and stability there because you will make good money. But I think the questions of like, where does this money come from? Whose money is it? And also, how will you make this money in this kind of like unreasonable amounts? So if someone said to you, you know what, you're really smart, you're gonna get this job, and you're gonna make $400,000, you're gonna make a base of $100,000, and maybe a bonus if you work really, really hard and you're really a very good bitch of mine, then you're gonna make $400,000 with bonuses. And if you can't do your dry cleaning, we'll take care of it. Ask, how does this work? Before you say yes, and just because it's an incredible institution, like none of it really is square for me. The same way, like right now, we have all these tech layoffs, right? So at some point you're going, well, I guess the gourmet chefs are going to have to leave, right? And maybe we can't just roller skate throughout the lobby. I think we have to ask those questions, and maybe it's because I grew up in a store, and I understood when my father sold, let's say, a pair of $2 earrings to a peddler, and the peddler bought the $2 earrings and sold them for $5 in the subway. That was a $3 profit. Like, that made sense to me. It was a thing. And then now we're really selling digits and numbers, and things don't really mean things. So maybe my questioning was the questions of an ignorant young person who just didn't understand. But perhaps we have to bring common sense back, because sometimes things can be too good to be true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a beautiful tension in the book where Casey is coming from a similar kind of background from pretty modest means, but she's attracted to the trappings of high finance,
Sure.
going to Princeton, the social capital that banking might give her. But she also has a strong religious background, a self-perception of herself as someone who is honest, and that seems to run headlong into the ethos of the banking industry. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about that tension. Like, it seems like you're critiquing perhaps a distinctly Korean American drive to participate in that success, what do you want to call it, and not really looking too closely at the grime in the corner of the room.
Well, I don't know if it is just Korean American. I think it is for the outsider person, and certainly the immigrant, this feeling of being unwashed and wanting to be clean. This feeling of being unacceptable and wanting to be accepted. And also the unspoken problem of status hierarchy in America. There's so much status hierarchy in America, we don't want to talk about it. And one of the ways you can communicate status is through these trappings and symbols. I remember when I was a lawyer and I was a first year, all the senior people would always talk about where they went on holiday. And they would say things like, well, you can't stay at the Ritz-Carlton because the Four Seasons is so much better. And of course I'm just thinking like, exactly like how? Is it the thread count? Like what? And for me, I just wanted to know. So I'm not someone who's going to say, like, if you enjoy having a fancy car or a good bottle of wine or the most expensive butter that you could find at Whole Foods, whatever it is that gets you going or you feel an aesthetic pleasure, I'm not going to judge you for that. Like, I'm not that person. But what's more interesting to me is that, like, when we have this reflexive Calvinistic idea of that's immediately bad, like you should not pay $20 for butter.
That's what my parents would say.
Yes, yeah. But aren't you kind of curious? Like, is it delicious? Like, is it? And I guess for me, like, I kind of want to know. Like, I would actually say, I'd like to try that butter. Fuck it. How long did it take me to say that word?
20 minutes.
I was just telling someone I was going to try not to do that. So.
We're a polite crowd. You can drop the F-bombs left and right.
I'm sorry. Are there any children here?
So, interestingly enough, gambling would continue to appear in your work
Yes.
with pachinko, right? Which is a kind of upright Japanese pinball machine that they use in their gambling parlors, pachinko parlors. And so I was hoping to ask you, well, why frame the novel Pachinko with this device, and what does it mean to the Zainichi Koreans, ethnic Koreans in Japan?
I didn't know what pachinko was when I started my first draft of the book. The first draft of the book was called Motherland, and it featured only Solomon, so there was no Sanja in the first draft at all. I know people can't believe it. And that's why you haven't read it, because it sucks. It's so bad, it's really boring. My husband's like, oh, it's not so good. And we have somehow managed to stay married. I wanted to frame it with pachinko because when I got to Japan, they were everywhere. If you go to Tokyo, I mean, anywhere in Japan, you will see these pachinko parlors everywhere. And there's less now, but they're still everywhere. And they're not for kids. Like, you can't walk in if you're a kid. They'll throw you out. And it was like this adult gambling. And now it's considered kind of low class. But it used to be considered very acceptable and normal. And only pretty much Japanese people play pachinko. But there was a lot of Koreans involved in the business. So every time I do my field work and do my ethnographic, my fake ethnographic, so for the real anthropologists here, I'm pretending to be you. I try to do the participant observation thing. I take all these notes and I try to hang out with people who are smart and figure it out. Every single person had a pachinko person in their family. And then I learned about all the employment discrimination that men were facing in Japan who are Korean Japanese. And pachinko was the space in which everybody could get a job. And also, if you were on the lam, like you're running away from your family or you're running away from something, they even had dormitories. So that's the reason why Noah ends up in a pachinko parlor, and that came from research.
Yeah, it's an industry that the Zainichi Koreans gravitate towards for many reasons. And I'm curious where you first stumbled upon the Zainichi, because I had no idea that the Zainichi Koreans existed until I actually lived in Japan, and a friend casually mentioned, oh, did you know there's these North Korean affiliated state schools? And it just completely blew my mind. And it went down this whole rabbit hole that eventually led to my research. But once I was doing my research, I thought this is a really esoteric niche topic. I don't know how many people are going to actually want to read this, except for Cindy over there. Yeah, right. But imagine my surprise when Pachinko came out, and it was just it completely took the literary world by storm. It won all these bestseller lists and or won all these awards. So I want to ask you, when you stumbled upon the Zainichi, did you have any foretelling that it would resonate on this level?
No. As a matter of fact, after I finished the draft, and I just felt like I'm liberated from this thing, this weight. Because I started learning about the Zainichi, the Korean Japanese people, when I was 19. So I was in college and I went to a talk of a of a white American missionary, this nice person who was helping poor Korean Japanese in Japan. And I heard this story about a little boy who killed himself who was Korean Japanese, and his parents were Korean Japanese because he was bullied by his classmates. And that story is what really made me kind of go, I need to learn more about this group because it is too crazy for me. And it was really just, I think, I'm so angry all the time. Like, this pleasant demeanor is totally a disguise. But angry books no one wants to read. But my anger is there in everything. I'm so angry about the injustice that children feel. I'm so angry about people getting picked on. I'm so angry about socioeconomic inequality, poor distribution of resources. Don't get me started. I'm angry about it. But the more I learned, I met all these people, and they weren't angry like me. They kept on just going shogunai, which, for those who speak Japanese, just means can't be helped. This is what it is. And they just didn't want me to really highlight it, the fact that they're going through something. And it's kind of like when you're a teenager, and I know there are adoptees in this room, and I've also met adoptive parents. Very often people will say, oh, my kid doesn't want to talk about it. And of course, I've talked to so many people now who are in this community, and very often when they're just kids, they're like, yeah, because I just want to be a kid. It's totally normal. They're like, I'm busy being 17. I don't need to be talking about my identity. right? Which makes sense. And the parents are being thoughtful, and they want to bring culture into the world. But when I was working on pachinko and I was living in Japan, I realized, like, oh, they just want to be ordinary citizens. And for the most part, they really want to be considered Japanese. Like, really for the most part, except for the ones who are North Korean Japanese. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones who are kind of, they're very baller. Like, they look at you straight in the eye. And they go, what did you think about that? And they're kind of sussing you out. And once you pass muster with one of them, then you're okay. So I got all these interviews because I was okay with the first one. But the first one was kind of like, you're some dumb American.
So I was hoping to ask you to zero in one of the characters of Pachinko. You had mentioned Noah earlier.
Yeah.
Right? He's one of the more tragic. There's a lot of tragic characters, but Noah seems to be kind of the exemplar of tragedy. Noah is Sunja's grandson. Is it grandson? No, son. Is it son? Son, right. And he has...
he's the love child.
Yeah, he's the love child, the intellectual who's supposed to become successful, finds himself on the lam at a pachinko parlor. And this is a confrontation with Sunja after she finds him, after his not wanting to be found. Do you mind reading this passage, please?
When the professor gives you homework, you do it. So Noah's talking to his mother after he learns that his father is not who he thought it was. Yakuza are the filthiest people in Japan. They're thugs. They're common criminals. They frighten shopkeepers, they sell drugs, they control prostitution, and they hurt innocent people. All the worst Koreans are members of these gangs. I took money for my education from a Yakuza, and you thought this was acceptable. I will never be able to wash this dirt from my name. You can't be very bright. He said, how can you make something clean from something dirty? And now you have made me dirty. Noah said this quietly, as if he was learning this, as if he was saying it to her. All my life, I have had Japanese telling me that my blood is Korean, that Koreans are angry and violent and cunning and deceitful criminals. All my life I had to endure this. And I tried to be as honest and as humble as Peg Isak was. I never raised my voice. But this blood, my blood is Korean. And now I learned that my blood is Yakuza blood. I can never change this, no matter what I do. It would have been better if I was never born. How could you have ruined my life? How could you be so imprudent? A foolish mother and a criminal mother. I am cursed. That was unexpected.
So he is...
I really didn't expect to do that.
I think I mentioned...
I've never actually read that before
really?
in public, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to sniffle for
Thank you. I know, thank you. Yeah, I think it's menopause. It's not just my Han, okay?
So he's really wrestling there
Yeah.
with two things, right? One is that he's found out that his father is a Yakuza, a gangster, and that, the thing that he's been pushing away, running away from, being Korean, is layered on top of that realization, right? So he's got a double whammy, right? And he speaks with such conviction, right? He is totally taking in the essentialist logic that my blood is immutable, this can never change, that Koreans are inherently criminal, right? And now that I'm a Yakuza, son of a Yakuza, I'm like double a super criminal, right? So there's a tension for the reader, the American reader, I should say, who is reading this and taking in Noah's utter conviction about his cursedness. But for an American reader, they're going to be aware at the same time there's a different kind of racialization for Korean Americans in the American context, right? So there's a kind of doubling that's happening there, like a dissonance, right? And so I wondered if this was intentional on your part to kind of highlight how respective histories and material conditions create these kinds of stereotypes and racist structures. And you have Noah taking this logic to its extreme. I don't want to spoil it for those of you who haven't read the book, but
TikTok, everybody. Yeah. My next book's coming, so yeah.
But yeah, I was wondering what was the intent in writing this character who's going to like take this logic to its end.
Well, I love Noah. I mean, we all love Noah. I mean, Noah is the model minority, right? For those of you who have tried really hard in your life to somehow clean yourself, to somehow make yourself acceptable in the sight of the world, when finally you learn that it cannot be done, that you'll always be considered a certain way, that weight is something that I personally understand. I think all of us understand that any of us who've tried to be loved or accepted by someone who doesn't think we're good enough. And when I met so many Korean Japanese who felt that they were being socially discriminated against. And what was so interesting to me is that in my interviews where I was pretending to be the anthropologist, I would ask questions like, at some point, like in the beginning I was so bad at it, I would ask questions like, well, have you been discriminated against? I know, so stupid. And they would say, no. They would just be really quite adamant, like, never. No, I love it here. And then I would spend 2 or 3 hours with them. And then eventually they would say, well, I fell in love with this girl, and we couldn't get married. And I said, why? And they would say, oh, because I'm Korean. And I'm thinking, that's discrimination. And it's okay if you say it. It doesn't mean that that person's horrible. It just means that this thing happened, right? And it's culturally acceptable to behave this way. In the same way, for a very long time in Korea, if you had mental illness in your family, that made you unmarriageable. Like if you had a suicide in your family, that meant that there was something wrong with your lineage, because it's essentialism, this idea of blood. So this kind of discrimination is kind of culturally much more normalized in Asian countries. Things are really changing. That said, it's kind of like nearsightedness. Like it was considered very romantically unattractive if somebody was nearsighted. I have news. A lot of people in Korea are nearsighted. So anyway, all this to say, Noah for me embodied so many things that all of us are feeling, but then it was so specifically Korean Japanese too. But I think I didn't answer a question earlier that you raised, which is so important, is did I in any way think that people would want to read this book? And I did not. As a matter of fact, when I finished it, I didn't have a contract and I didn't have an agent or a publisher. Both of those books were written on spec, and I think I met a literary agent here earlier, so you understand. So when you write it on spec, that means that nobody asked you to do it. Like, I wrote it, I had, for Free for Millionaires, it was 760 printed out pages. It was in an extra large Kinko's box. Do they have Kinko's in Utah? Yes. Yeah. It was in an extra large Kinko's box, and I remember walking it to an agent's office because this is before email documents. But going back to Pachinko, when I finished it, I remember thinking, oh, you know what? If I can't find a publisher, I think this topic is so missing that I think I could probably contact an academic publisher and maybe get it printed and not get paid. Like, that's really what I thought I was going to do.
So why do you think it caught fire?
It's outstanding literature.
I think you got some of that North Korean baller.
Yeah. You spend enough time with North Korean, Japanese people, and you just become really confident. It's like when I went to HBS to research briefly for Millionaires. You spend about like 8 hours walking through HBS, pretending that you're going to apply, which is what I did.
Harvard Business School.
Harvard Business School. And you start thinking like, I can fix that problem. Just
I mean, speaking of research,
Yeah.
I mean, my advisor in grad school said in other fields, not English, in history, they don't
Thing's
write
coming
books.
out. Your
Oh,
label's
okay.
coming out.
Thank you.
Sorry. My
And-
mother instinct came out. Sorry.
He said in history, they don't write books, they write bricks. You write bricks.
I write bricks.
Right? You could bludgeon somebody with these.
Yeah.
And so you have a peculiar or very specific style of research when it goes into your writing. Like why approach your writing like an ethnographer or an anthropologist or a historian?
Because I love my people. It's menopause. I feel a tremendous responsibility to our community. This is so bizarre. What is it with Utah? It must be the elevation.
Drink some water, please.
I know, really. I've met other writers who are normal. And they have a burning story to tell. And I always just think, like, why can't I be more like you? And they're really good writers. But they're normal. Like, they could write about a family and emotions and a betrayal and a secret or something. And I think, whereas I feel like, if I don't get everything about an era or an idea and an argument completely fixed in a book, then there's really no point to writing it. And then because I've met so many Koreans who've like told me their secrets and stories, and they're so dear to me. And also, I'm going to say something really crazy. Koreans really don't get enough love. I have met so many Koreans who don't get enough love, and I feel like they try so hard, they work like non-fucking stop. So it's this whole sleeping giant idea, that's just a ruse. They were working, they were never sleeping. Like they were working to create Hallyu. And I've noticed that if I see somebody working really hard and go, that took a lot of effort, they're always so surprised because somebody said something nice, and I'm going, well, I'm not gonna lie to you, like what do I get out of it? You really did work really hard on something. And then I realized like, they didn't get enough of that. But they should, because they're such capable people that, not all of them, but the ones who are like knocking it out of the park, that I really want to encourage them, and especially the kids. Gosh, like they're really working so hard. So because my next book is about education, I've met so many Korean American kids and Korean kids from around the world who are just busting their asses.
So these are love letters to the community then.
They are to me, and also I've gotten the love back, and it's what I do. I'm not going to write that many books because it's really hard. Yeah.
On that note, can I talk to you about your next project, American Hotline?
Sure.
So I think it's kind of a rite of passage for a lot of Korean American kids, increasingly non-Koreans as well, to work at a hagwon at some point. The hagwons are after-school institutions. They're called jukus in Japan, cram schools. I worked at one in Gangnam and Orange County. It's a very specific institution in cultural practice.
Did you ever go to any?
I did. I went to Kumon, which is
the same thing.
Same thing, right?
So you went to a Japanese one.
Japanese one, yeah.
I like Kumon. I'm a fan of Kumon. It's affordable.
You should have talked to me when I was a kid. I was not very happy there.
Well, but you should actually stop pretty quickly. You shouldn't do it for very long. So whenever I talk to parents who are having a specific issue and they can't afford more than, let's say, $200 a month to get tutoring, I'll say, well, you might want to try Kumon, but I wouldn't do it for more than 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm an English professor now.
Right.
I did more than 2 years. And so hagwons have been criticized as well for being, stress factories, right? Adding to early burnout for a lot of kids. And I have some mixed feelings about it. But I'm curious, what is it about the institution of the Hagwon that you found something compelling or unique that reveals something about the Korean diaspora?
Well, it's my organizing metaphor, the way pachinko is an organizing metaphor for the experience of Korean Japanese people of life being a gamble and being deeply unfair and rigged, and yet they persisted. For me, American Hagwon, right now in this draft that I'm working on, and hopefully that I turn to my publisher on July 1st. For the faithful out there, please pray for me. I'm not kidding. I wanted to talk about this institution because the most important thing in all of my interviews with every Korean person I've ever spoken to, education is a hot button topic. It is something that people believe in like religion. So you know how people believe in Confucianism as a philosophy, or Catholicism, or Judaism. Those things are important. But where people really practically see their application of what their faith is, whatever their faith system is, education is where Koreanness is applied. Even if you reject education, it's an action toward a very important feeling. So I thought, okay, well, gosh, what's going on? Like, what is this thing? So it's not that, I was trying to figure, like, what do Koreans care about more than anything? Is it money? Is it status? Is it safety? Is it peace? It turned out it was education. I was like, oh, okay. So I looked more into it. And of course, then it just came to me, like, it was so easy. I was like, oh, it's Hagwons. Hagwons are the space of shadow education. And it's the space in which we try to get extra. So it's not public schools, it's not private schools, it's not private colleges or public universities. It's Hagwon, this space in which Koreans, especially in South Korea, starting at age 4, send their children to learn usually English. And so if your average income is, let's say, $47,000 a year, which is what I think the average South Korean makes right now, and you're spending, let's say, $800 a month sending your 4-year-old for supplemental education, that's a lot of money. But it really tells you something about what you feel. The way you spend your money will tell you what you care about. And I don't judge people for doing this. I don't. Now that I've interviewed everybody, I don't judge Hagwons, I don't judge parents. I do not judge parents. And I don't judge the kids ever, because they're just kids. They don't have capacity. And I also don't blame people who work in Hagwons, who own Hagwons. I just want to report what I saw.
So you see it as a job to kind of hold up the mirror.
Yeah, and without the judgment. Mm-hmm. I think it's so, I feel like I really feel sorry for parents of young children right now. Because I mean, what you're going through, I didn't have to go through as much. Because I'm 55, my son is 26. Like, I didn't have to go through as much of the tech stuff that you have to go through. And certainly my parents had no idea of any of this, because my virtual world was the public library. And now you have Vision Pro.
Do they have Vision Pro Hagwons now?
There are a lot of computer game Hagwons in Korea. You can go Hagwon for anything.
Well, our dean is going to Korea tomorrow, I believe, so I'll tell her to look out for that.
I think Hollis already left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She went to get their Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Min. Please join me in
David, you're awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, David. Thank you, Min. We do have some time for questions from the audience. We have 2 handheld microphones, one on either side. So if you do have a question, please just raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you.
So as you're thinking about your third book in the diaspora, where mixed race Koreans will fit in, or if they'll fit in, as I sit next to my mixed race Korean friend, and I think about quite a few of us are here, actually. I think Utah weirdly has a large amount of mixed race Koreans, if you're going to factor them in as you're thinking about.
Well, they're always factored into my equation, but it's interesting because I think Koreanness is something that you self-identify. So if you don't identify as Korean, and some people really resent even being pointed out as Korean. Like I had one woman tell me, I'm not making this up. She's a very prominent person in the world. And she said to me, I have to tell you my secret shame. And I said, what is that? And she said, I'm half Korean. And I said, why is that a secret shame? Because I think being Korean is fabulous. But I actually had to say something a little obnoxious because it hurt my feelings. Because she was saying this to me as if I would understand. Like, she could feel the shame herself privately, but it's one thing to tell me. So in that sense, like, would I put that in the book? No. Because unless I gave it a counter character. The interesting thing, this is a really important question that you're raising, is that when I'm populating my universe, I have to be really responsible. So if I have, let's say, one English professor, and he happens to be brilliant and hot, and interested in the same subjects that I'm interested in, which is very exciting for me. But then I only presented that as the example of an English professor. I think I made a stupid world. Like, I'd have to have other English professors. So my books are really big because you'll often find different examples of things. So if I had, let's say, one mixed race person who's Korean, I would have to have another person. Because I don't want a virtue signal like all mixed race Koreans are good, all adoptees are good, all Koreans from New Jersey have golf issues. Does that make sense? So, and I say this very pointedly because people do look at books and think, oh, that's a type. Like now I have created a Casey. Like I'll have people come to me. I have people who've read the book every year. Like, I'm not kidding you. Like they read the book every year and they write to me something. And sometimes I'll meet like a group of women and they'll go, oh, I'm Team Casey, I'm Team Ella. And I kind of think, oh, I'm so glad. Because Korean women are not just seen as Casey or Ella, right? And also every generation should have a different experience. And I'm sure I'm inadequate in the way I represent in my world. There could be more people, but then I also need to respect the reader because how much can you follow? But then again, you guys could follow Game of Thrones. So I'm like, I can probably do anything now. But thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the afterlife of pachinko.
Cindy.
Yes. So, yeah, I'll just leave it very open-ended. So I'm thinking about
Is this like the adorable faculty row?
Yeah. This is us. We're the special ones. So I wanted to ask, your thoughts on Soo Hyu's television adaptation, but maybe also I'm interested in the translations. So something that's been really interesting in my field is that pachinko is also a bestseller in Korean, but in Japan, not so much. Its translation was delayed until 2020, and then I think sold pretty well, but just hasn't had that kind of cultural impact that it has maybe in other countries. So just interested in hearing about what it's been like to watch the novel after it's out of your hands.
I declined to comment on the Apple TV show. So that's question number one. Question number two is Korea. So it's been translated twice. I've had two different publishers. They've approached marketing in a different way. So I think in 2022, it was the #1 book in the country. But the book had come out, I think in Korea in 2017, on the latter part. It's also a book that was published for the Korean Army. So if you go to the Korean Army Library, any Korean male who is conscripted and does service could read it for free. So to get that kind of reception for something that I had toiled over most of my life, most of my adult life was spent writing these 2 books. And it's such an incredible, extraordinary feeling of, like, I'm so gratified, especially because I wrote them on spec without an agent because I lost my job and I didn't have health insurance and all this stuff. But I don't want you to feel sorry for me because I have such cute clothes now. I'm teasing. How does it feel for it to be out of my hands? I've just been so grateful to have readers at all. You know, I feel like I'm a steward in some ways of writers. So I serve as a trustee for PEN America. I serve as a director for Authors Guild. And I associate myself with these organizations because I think writers are having a hard time around the world. I think media is being assaulted, not just here, but in so many totalitarian countries. So I take my position quite seriously, and I try really hard to be careful, and I try to be responsible, especially to the groups that don't get fair play. It's very, very hard, very, very hard. As for American Hagwon, it's a very controversial book, so I'm very scared. So I might cry again, yeah. I really do think it's menopause, yeah. Missy, you're doing an outstanding job.
This is not my first time. Am I going first?
Oh, sweetie, what's your name?
My name is Ruma.
Ruma, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
I wanted to understand when you move from history to ethnography, how do you kind of manage that situation? Thank you.
Well, I don't do it very well, but I really like it. So I read ethnography. And because I read ethnography, I think, oh, they're the most useful people for novelists, like me. Because they actually talk about culture and lived lives. And they observe it without judgment, which is what anthropologists do. So I think when we think of anthropologists, we think of Margaret Mead and colonialism and oppression and race. And yeah, that's there too. But I'm really interested in trying to understand what it's like to be human in another culture. And there's so many subcultures and cultures and the language of it. So I adore history. I love it so much. But so many of us are missing, right? So sociology and anthropology are fields that I'm profoundly interested in. I'm always really interested in it. So I order so many books written by academics, and I read certain sections, or I try to read all of them. And of course, they're written in a way for the academics, like the first chapter, they kind of like give you the cheat sheet. So then I kind of know where to look. And I do it, and it's a weird way to work as a novelist, but I think anthropologists are some of the coolest people. I also really like economists. If you're here, we could talk.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I loved.
It's Serene, yes?
Yes, really good memory. Thank you. I loved the question and the commentary about investment banking being a theme in both of the books.
Yeah.
And another theme that I noticed was religion, or the role of faith. And with investment banking, it felt like Solomon and Casey arrive at very similar conclusions about their jobs and how vacuous it was for both of them. But it felt like the role that faith played was actually totally different between someone like Isaac and Casey, Leah, Charles, etc. Did that come? Did the role of faith or the theme of religiosity come from your upbringing, certain experiences? Was that an intentional commentary?
Well, I'm a Christian. And it always upsets people. And also people are always surprised. They're like, you? And I keep thinking, did I do something wrong? like, is it obvious? It must be my cussing. It must be my cussing. But I taught Sunday school. So there's a part, and my grandfather was a minister. He was the headmaster of an orphanage of boys who were repatriated from Japan to Korea after the war. So I grew up in the church. I'm a baptized Presbyterian. But it doesn't mean that I don't have questions about religion, and I'm not unaware of the hypocrisy and the narrowness and the cruelty, and how religion could be used as a kind of bludgeon for people. Religion is really interesting because whatever your religious practice is, and what's interesting to me is that I am in a very secular world as an artist. Most people that I know think it's hilarious that I go to church. And actually, I think it's kind of hilarious. And if you ever see me at church, and please don't, because I'm not going to tell you where I go. But when I go, I literally go and I do my thing and I leave. I never go to coffee hour. I'm the rudest Presbyterian. But for me, it's really important that I have this faith. But it's made me question so many things. And when you are a religious person, you have all these issues about money and class. So I wanted to explore them, and I was able to explore them in all my characters. And I'm going to say something really controversial again about being a novelist in the world. I think when you don't think about religion, you're kind of like not thinking about people. Because most people have an opinion on religion. And it's not just the cool people that in a room who kind of go like, well, they're idiots, obviously. Because I've met some very smart people who believe in God, of whatever faith. And also, most people in the world are Muslim. People don't want to know that. And the fact that most people in America have zero knowledge about the complexity of Islam is actually making us have terrible foreign policy decisions. So, yeah. Am I going to get canceled now? Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if I answered the question, though, but yeah. I just confessed. Yeah.
Hi. Hi, right over here.
What's your name?
Audrey.
Min.
Hi. I feel like you get this question quite a lot, but I'm taking an intro creative writing class, and I was wondering.
I teach an intro creative writing class.
Yeah, great. I was wondering if you could give specifically young aspiring authors of color advice on how to become an author, because I do feel that intimidation of becoming an author, specifically looking at how white-dominated the publishing field is. So if you have any advice, that would be great.
Well, you're asking an important and a complicated question of publishing and exclusion. But I'm going to say something really you probably don't want to hear. But because, Audrey, I am committed to your growth, I'm going to say it. I say it out of love. Don't worry about it. Focus on the writing. Read all the people who are the best writers that you could find, get your hands on. Write and rewrite, and be willing to throw out drafts. And then ask yourself, with every draft, did I say what I wanted to say? What is it that I really want to say? And did I say it as well as I could have, with everything that I have within me? So the message plus the craft have to marry. And then when you're done, be willing to share it. And be willing to hear what people have to say, what they think. And if they don't like it, that's okay too. Because you don't have to write for everybody. And as for publishing, it'll happen. I remember when I first started, and I was in I was 26. I didn't publish until I was 38. So you'll publish faster than me. Everybody publishes faster than me. And I remember I met 2 editors, and we had tea, and they're really good friends. So imagine like 2 really cool editors and they're friends. So it's like Jeremy and David are hanging out. They all like know each other, and they have like code. And I'm sitting here like an idiot. And they both tell each other, there's like nothing to publish. Everybody's so terrible. And I just wanted to die. Because what they were saying is, no, we're looking for things to publish, but you suck. And you know what? At the time, I'm really so happy I didn't publish my first manuscript, Revival of the Senses, which you will never see. It's so bad. And I've had friends actually who've actually published really early, and then their books did terribly, and they could not publish a second book. I mean, this is a very common publishing story. So I would not worry about that part. I would really focus on what you want to say, and you're actually at an advantage of being a person with a non-majority history in a way, and also a life and a culture, because you have gold. You have gold in your pockets, but you just didn't know that. So you could use your gold.
I think we have time for just one more.
Hi there, Min. Can you hear me?
Yes, what's your name?
My name is Paul.
Paul, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
My first high school boyfriend's name is Paul.
Oh, hey. Good to know.
I've never shared that in a public event.
I feel flattered. So my question for you,
But you're the first Paul who's ever asked me a question.
Hey, there you go. So my question for you, first of all, I love your book, especially Pachinko really spoke to me. I'm not from South Korea, I'm actually from Peru. But being able to see the whole journey of Sanja from the very beginning to the very end kind of made me remember a little bit about my family and about being an immigrant. So my question for you is concerning Sanja. What was your inspiration from her? Was it based on a real life person? Was it a collection of different individuals? And how would you describe Sanja to be as an example for other people who are also can relate to the particular character?
Well, I didn't have Sanja until I went to Japan. So I kind of discovered the idea of her in 2008. So I had to throw out the entire Solomon Motherland novel, except for one chapter, which survived, which is about the fingerprinting. Because that was the only thing that was really materially interesting to me. And of course, Solomon's decision to go into pachinko. And the whole trading and all the discrimination that he feels, which are kind of basically almost like microaggressions, I guess, what you call that right now. When people think that you're a dishonest person. That wouldn't carry a novel. I discovered Sanja, again, just through ethnography. Just by talking to so many people, I learned about pachinko by talking to so many people and really hearing them. They kept on talking about this first generation. And most women were illiterate. I mean, as a matter of fact, when you meet a Korean person and they tell you that my great-grandmother went to college, that's a really rare thing. And the fact that if they said to you, my great-grandmother or my grandmother went to college or read books, they're immediately telescoping and telegraphing to you about their socioeconomic status, what parties they allied with, and how much capacity and connections they had. Because the experience of most Koreans in Korea just 100 years ago is that almost everybody was illiterate. Everybody, but imagine women, not the priority. So knowing that, I really felt like, oh, am I being really sexist? Me being sexist by focusing on men's history rather than focusing on women's history. So, and then I was like, oh, no, I have to write about Sanja. So that was really important. And as for Sanja being a model, I really worry about this. I worry about this because Sanja's so virtuous. And if you wanted to be a really horrible first-generation woman, It's fine. I mean, it's not advisable. Like, you're not going to have good consequences, but I think sometimes we really make women feel bad when they do things that are not considered good. And now that I get older, like I'm 55 and I'm pushing 60, like I'm looking at 60 if I get lucky, right? If I'm lucky, I get 60. I really think a great deal about the fact that women's lives are just not explored in all of our moral complexity. So if you wanted to make a really shitty choice, if you wanted to knife somebody, I'm not saying you should do it. But I almost feel like, in a way, being honest about it will prevent you from doing it. And as a novelist, especially because I'm interested in social realism, I want to write about that. So should Sanja be a model? I don't know. In the same way, like, if you're Team Ella, not Team Casey, or if you're Team Casey and not Team Ella, you're kind of telling me what you think your moral parameters are about, let's say, sex. So if you have witnessed a three-way, and like, especially nowadays with gender fluidity and also polyamory, and how sex is so accepted in the way we understand popular culture, it'll be interesting to see what people think, because when Free Food came out, I had this wonderful reception from readers in America. But I did have a couple of Korean American women get very upset with me, like my friends. And I think it's because they're like, you're telling the secrets. And then also some mothers got mad at me who are Korean Americans, going like, are you proposing that they should quit being an investment banker? I mean, now it looks like I'm a genius. But back then, they thought, oh, no, that's not what you should do. You should actually encourage the kid to go through this process. And I guess I will say that about investment banks, I don't think that they're vacuous. It's just not for everybody. Like, not everybody should be a doctor. Like, we can argue that going to medical school could be a vacuous decision for some people. Like, it's not always noble. I mean, I know so many doctors who are really rabid conservative people who feel very strongly that healthcare should not be nationalized, and that would be the worst possible thing, and that people should not have medical care. They're actually, if you take them out of that conversation, they're really normal. But when it comes to this issue, they're so resentful because they spent most of their lives sacrificing to become doctors, and then they have to deal with all this bullshit paperwork and insurance companies and people who exploit their gifts. So they have a reason to be this way, and I kind of listen and go like, huh, John, you're normally a very good person. And if I was sick, I'd want to go to John. But we cannot talk about politics. Does that make sense? So I do want to, like, if you are an investment banker out there, only love.
All right. Well, I love that novelists tell the secrets and put them out in the open, and also try to think their way through every aspect of humanity and every human character. Before you all join me in giving a big round of applause to our guests tonight, I have just a few announcements. I first of all want to begin by thanking all of you for coming tonight. It's incredible to see a waiting list and a sold-out crowd. To see a novelist as an English professor, it makes me very proud. It's also a very weird experience to have people emailing me and saying, where are the tickets? I need you to hook me up. So very happy to see you all tonight. But I need to thank a lot of people who make an evening like this possible. So first I want to thank O.C. Tanner and the Tanner family's multi-generational support of the Tanner Humanities Center, the B.W. Bastian Foundation, the College of Humanities, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, PEN America, Goldman Sachs, the R. Harold Burton Foundation, Salt Lake City Arts Council, Salt Lake Film Society, our loyal partners, the King's English Booksellers Bookshop, Utah Humanities, and the Zoo Arts and Parks program. I also need to thank the Tanner Humanities Center staff, especially Beth James, Missy Weeks, Skylar Fetter, who put so much work in behind the scenes to make these events happen. Our beloved partners, the King's English booksellers, will be selling books outside afterwards, and Min is generous enough to offer time to sign books. Please, she will limit to one per person so that we can get their books signed. Lastly, I just want to announce we have an exciting upcoming event. On April 17th, we have Robin Wall Kimmerer, author of Braiding Sweetgrass, coming, along with Kyle White, environmental justice and indigenous justice scholar from University of Michigan. That's April 17th over here in the Moot Court room. Please follow us on social media. If you like what you see, please come back to Tanner Humanities Center events. And now, please join me in thanking David Roh and Min Jin Lee.